Bosses in games should test a player to their current limits, pushing them to unleash everything they've learned or accumulated over the past few hours. They should be challenging and bring you out of your comfort zone. This is especially true for final bosses in games. They should feel like the most difficult fight in the whole game without feeling cheap and unfair. When boss enemies fail to deliver this all-important feeling, you're left feeling robbed of a fun fight. While some boss fights are for cinematic purposes, such as unwinnable battles, or they're just a joke, I'm looking for the ones that were shit, anticlimactic, or poorly executed. And no optional bosses will be included on this list. As you probably have guessed, there are big spoilers here, as this list will reveal bosses and final bosses. Now that we're all on the same page, let's go. Number 10. Nihilanth, Half-Life. While the boss fight looks pretty goddamn terrifying, it is an easy fight that is very unsatisfying. Nihilanth is the leader of the Zen, the alien race that's been invading Earth during the Black Mesa incident. It sounds pretty intimidating to take down this powerful alien being, but it's just a case of shoot some pointy regenerating spikes, hide behind a rock, shoot till its head opens up, use the jump pad and aim a shot into that exposed brain, and that's all. Number 9. Covetous Demon, Dark Souls 2. A pathetic excuse for a Dark Souls boss. The Covetous Demon is a huge, slug-like thing that flops around and can easily be distracted by a few corpses, to the point where you could pretty much kill it while it feasts on a single distraction. Even the creature's lore is just lazy. There was once a man whose deep affections were unrequited. He transformed into a Covetous Demon, which only made him lonelier than before. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Get out of my way. Number 8. Amalgam, The Evil Within. Now, I'm all for trippy, nonsense, psychological mindfuckery, but when it gets way out of hand, it's just funny and stupid. The Evil Within had some good ideas, but they were executed way wrong. This is put on glorious display when we come to the final boss, Amalgam. We are tossed in a strange brain world where giant hands rake along our path and giant flesh pillars blast through the ground. It all feels like nonsense. There's no sense of danger as the over-the-top crap happening around you distracts you from feeling any fear. You get tossed around no matter what, end up manning guns and eventually a rocket launcher, finishing the boss off with a single aimed shot. Nothing like the stealthy, tight quarter fighting you were used to in the game that actually felt pretty tense. This was just an insult to all of that built-up tension. Number 7. Combat-heavy bosses, Deus Ex Human Revolution. You know your boss fights were fucked when you revamped them in the Game of the Year edition. Deus Ex Human Revolution allowed players to be combat or stealth orientated. This was done well during the levels with the nameless grunts, but when you came to many of the bosses, however, it was always might over mind. Combat-heavy bosses dominated the game, and if you wanted to be stealthy, you were boned. This was all because the boss fights were outsourced and not made along with the main team that made the game. Once the Game of the Year edition came out, they fixed this horribly skewed combat by allowing level redesigns that would benefit the sneaky types. You can see this during the fight against Lawrence Barrett. The left picture is the original game, and the right is the same area in the Game of the Year one. See how there's a ladder going up to a semi-built wall? Now you can climb up, duck into vents, and sneak around him while he lobs grenades at random. The fact that they had to do an entire redo of these bosses is just sad.
Access granted.
Number 6. Lambent Brumak, Gears of War 2.
What the hell is going on with that thing?
Gears of War War II is a pretty intense third-person shooter game, battling the Locust hordes and trying to save what's left of humanity. So when things get dicey and the lambent Brumak emerges, a being that is several stories tall, you'll think, shit, this is gonna be a really epic fight. You'd be oh so wrong. You take to the skies in a helicopter and use an emulsion-energized orbital satellite-based laser, also known as the Hammer of Dawn, to aim at the creature as giant lasers fry it. That's it, just point and hold and you win against the biggest creature the crew has ever seen. Seems pretty easy and pointless. Number 5. Rodrigo Borgia, Assassin's Creed 2.
I see. Kind of you to bring me the apple. Now give it here!
Vai a farti fottere.
You're a sneaky assassin with dual hidden blades, smoke bombs, skills with many different weapons. You've used a flying machine, hired mercenaries. You're a super badass. When it comes to the end of the game, you want to use all that you've learned. And there's a lot jam-packed in this game. Your target is Rodrigo Borgia, the Pope. What sneaky execution will you perform? When you finally face off against the Pope, all it takes is a very easy fat man fistfight. When you get his life down to nothing, you choke him out and... nope, Ezio spares him. Huh. Well, that was unsatisfying to say the least.
You can't! You can't! It's my destiny! Mine! I am the prophet!
Number 4. Yu Yevon, Final Fantasy X. I have many problems with this final boss. Once the leader of ancient Zanarkand, Yu Yevon is the father of Yunalesca, the first summoner that defeated Sin, and Yu Yevon is also the creator of Sin, a giant whale of destructive power. It's complicated. I won't go into detail. Anyways, Yu Yevon takes on the form of what looks like a tick that is made even less threatening when your party has a constant auto life cast on them. Not only that, Yu Yevon lacks any magic that can disable the party's actions to counter this auto life bullshittery. The fight is made even more pathetic when you learn you can inflict the status condition of zombie on the final boss of the game and kill it with a Phoenix down. What a fucking joke. After so many hours of slogging through the game, I'm rewarded with this piss take of a fight? Ugh. Number 3. Eisenberg, Lost Planet. While I was researching crappy boss fights, I came across this quote. The worst fights are generally ones that take you out of the context of what you've been doing in the game. You learn all these skills and then BAM! At the end, they change it. Or throw them all out the window. This perfectly encapsulates what happens in Lost Planet, with the final fight against Eisenberg. Throughout the game, the boss fights have had the same type of mechanics. You're either running around shooting up shit or piloting a clunky slow mech. Then comes the final boss fight of the game that gives you an insanely high-powered mech and expects you to learn all of the mechanics and fight the hardest boss in the game at the same time. Are you kidding me? And it's not a small mech jump, it's chonky stiff robot to Zone of the Enders level of maneuvering. It feels ridiculously unfair and takes away all of the skills you built up to that point. Number 2. Frank Fontaine, BioShock.
I remember when me and the crowd put you in that sub. You were no more than 2. You were my ace in the hole, but you were also the closest thing I ever had to a son. And that's why this hurts.
Inserting a new mechanic at the end of the game is horrible, yes. But when you destroy a perfectly built-up character for the sake of an action-based fight, that's just plain stupid and lame. Frank Fontaine is the scheming antagonist behind the story of BioShock, and he is a wonderful antagonist. With brains and wit, he's a skeezy con artist, and it just breaks my heart that he was reduced to a hulking mess of drugs just because. He even states that he never tasted Adam before, the power that allows people to develop super supernatural abilities. Andrew Ryan was a better fight, as it had so much meaning behind it that it wasn't hindered by the fact that you just beat the shit out of him with a golf club.
Obey!
The emotion was there and made it so satisfying. Here, all of that disappeared and we're left with some dumb shit boss fight.
I know what is!
This time for my dishonorable mentions, I've mashed in as many QTE boss fights I could remember. Please sit back and enjoy this lame garbage.
Be right there!
I've come this far, and I've lost everything! Coming, Sorator! Coming to murder you!
All right!
Number 1. Lucian Fairfax, Fable 2.
You're merely delaying the inevitable. All that you've struggled for will be crushed under the majesty of the Spire. Why must you interfere?
Famed for being the first pile of shit final boss that still stands high atop its mountain of feces to this day, Lucian Fairfax was an elderly man trying to rewind time so he could spend time with his dead family. Throughout the game, he has messed up our protagonist by killing their sister, the rest of their family, enslaves the protagonist for 15 years, kills the protagonist's dog. He's a real shit. Then when you finally get to teach this guy a lesson, he just talks and talks and talks. You can simply shoot him once and he dies. You can perform the weakest attack or magic and it does the same thing. The real kicker here is if you don't do anything, Reaver will just straight up shoot him and deprive you of your vengeance against this man. He even gives you a smug little line, the turd.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you want to kill him?
Lucian's dead. So, what happens now?